The lobby of Whitman Industries gleamed like a polished mirror, marble floors, golden accents, and a silence broken only by the sharp click of Charles Whitman's designer shoes. The billionaire CEO stepped out of the elevator, jaw clenched, holding a copy of the night staff schedule. His platinum watch, an heirloom worth more than most people's annual salary, had gone missing, and Charles Whitman didn't tolerate mistakes. He marched past reception, ignoring the polite greetings of his staff, spotting the janitorial supervisor nervously standing by the entrance. Charles raised the paper in his hand like an accusation. Who cleaned the 58th floor suite last night? The supervisor swallowed hard. Maria, sir. She's on the night shift. Without hesitation, Charles snapped. I want the night cleaner gone by tomorrow. Excuses. The words echoed through the towering glass atrium. A few employees nearby paused, watching silently as the CEO strode off, his anger leaving a trail behind him. Charles didn't wait for an explanation. In his world, time was money, and loyalty was conditional. He had built an empire on precision and control, and he didn't have time for theft. Back in his penthouse office, Charles poured himself a drink, trying to shake off the discomfort. His wrist felt strangely bare without the familiar weight of the watch. His mind didn't wander to Maria's story, or whether she might be innocent. All he saw was a breach of his perfectly ordered world. Later that night. Still restless, Charles sat in his home office when his assistant forwarded a contact number Maria had left earlier in case of emergencies. Impulsively, he tapped the call icon. After a few rings, the screen lit up not with Maria's face, but with that of a little girl. Hello, she said, her voice soft but clear. Charles blinked. Is this Maria's number? Yes. I'm Sophia. Mummy's still at work. Are you her boss? There was an awkward silence. Charles didn't know how to respond. The girl looked into the camera, her big brown eyes full of trust. Please don't fire my mummy. She didn't do anything bad. Charles hesitated. Why do you think she might lose her job? Mummy said someone important was very upset today. She was scared, but she didn't do anything wrong. She only cleans, she says. Her job helps me go to school and keeps the lights on. Sophia tilted the phone. Behind her, Charles could make out a tiny kitchen, a worn-out couch, a stack of children's books. Then the girl held up a wrinkled drawing crayons on paper, showing a stick-figure woman holding a mop under a shining ceiling, with a caption, written in shaky handwriting, "My mom cleans castles." Charles felt a lump form in his throat. He wasn't a man easily moved, but something about the pure, unwavering love in that child's voice cracked a part of his heart he didn't know was still open. He cleared his throat. Tell your mom to come to work tomorrow. Everything's okay. Sophia smiled, her eyes lighting up. Thank you, Mr. Mummy says people can be kind even if they're scary. The call ended. Charles sat back, staring at the screen as it went dark. The missing watch suddenly didn't matter. In its place was a different kind of wetter realization. All his success, his power, the empire he built, couldn't compare to the simple courage of a little girl defending her mother. He looked at the drawing again, frozen on the screen. My mom cleans castles. That night, Charles didn't sleep much, but for the first time in years he wasn't thinking about profits or losses, he was thinking about people, and the little voice that had reminded him what truly mattered. The screen flickered to life, and Charles Whitman leaned back in his chair, expecting to see the face of Maria, the night cleaner he had already decided to fire. But instead, the call connected to the warm, dim glow of a small apartment, and a little girl's face filled the screen. She had messy brown curls, wide, curious eyes, and wore a faded t-shirt with a unicorn drawn in marker. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Hello, she said cautiously. Are you my mummy's boss? Charles cleared his throat, unprepared. Yes, I'm calling for Maria. She's not home yet. She works late cleaning your big building. The girl answered matter-of-factly, then her tone shifted, softening into something that caught him off guard. Please don't take my mummy's job, she's all I have. The words hit harder than he expected. He blinked. What's your name? Sophia, she said, brushing hair from her face. She told me if anyone ever called and it was important, I should be brave and answer. Charles tried to maintain his usual composure, but something about the honesty in her voice unraveled it. His office, so sleek and cold just moments ago, now felt painfully sterile. He watched as Sophia shifted the phone slightly, revealing the cramped room behind her, peeling paint, a few schoolbooks stacked neatly on a chair, and dinner plates waiting cold on a table. I'm sorry if Mummy made a mistake, Sophia continued, her voice trembling just enough to sound like she was holding back tears. She said cleaning your office makes me proud of her. I told her she was like a queen's helper in a big palace. Did she do something bad? Charles stared at her, speechless. In all his years leading boardrooms, negotiating deals worth millions, and firing hundreds without a second thought, no one had ever spoken to him like this. Not with blame, not with fear, but with raw sincerity. No, he finally said, his voice quieter than he meant it to be. She didn't do anything bad. Sophia smiled faintly, as if she wanted to believe him but wasn't sure she could yet. She always says rich people don't see people like us. But maybe you're different. Charles couldn't look away. The child in front of him wasn't trying to manipulate or flatter. She wasn't part of any strategy. She was just trying to protect her mother with nothing but words and wide eyes. Before he could respond, the screen shifted as someone entered the apartment. A voice off camera called, "Sophia, who are you talking to?" It's the man from Mummy's work, she said, turning the phone. But Charles ended the call before Maria could appear. He sat there, frozen. All at once, the noise of the city outside his high-rise windows seemed distant. For the first time in years, Charles felt something unfamiliar tugging inside him, something that softened the sharp lines of his world. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe it was grace. He leaned back. The image of Sophia's hopeful face burned into his mind. One small voice had pierced through the walls he built with power and pride, and it was starting to change everything. The morning sun spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Charles Whitman's office, casting long streaks of light across the polished desk. He sat in his leather chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin, staring at the door. There was a quiet knock. "Come in," he said, his voice unusually calm. Maria stepped inside, her posture stiff, eyes downcast. She wore the same faded blue uniform from the night shift, and clutched her hands tightly in front of her. She looked like someone ready to lose everything. "I'm sorry, sir," she began, before he could speak. "If I've done something wrong, please just let me explain. I didn't take anything. I've never even touched your desk." Charles studied her. The face he had only seen on employee forms and security logs was now realigned with fatigue, but dignified. Her voice trembled, but her words held quiet strength. He didn't respond to her apology. "Tell me about Sophia," he said instead. Maria's eyes widened slightly in surprise. She hesitated. Then, slowly, she sank into the chair across from him. "She's 8, she said softly. "Smart as anything. Her teachers say she's got a brain for math. But she loves stories, more princesses, fairy tales, castles." Charles watched her as she spoke. This wasn't a performance. There was no desperation, just a mother's love wrapped in exhaustion. "I work nights here," she continued, "and mornings at a bakery. Sophia's with my neighbor most of the time, but I get her ready for school before I head out again. She lost her dad when she was 4-car accident. Since then, it's just been me." Charles felt something shift in his chest. He glanced at her, baggled and frayed at the seams, and noticed a crumpled piece of paper sticking out the side. "What's that?" he asked gently, nodding. Maria looked embarrassed. "Oh, that's just Sophia's drawing. She puts it in my bag to remind me she's proud. She says I'm cleaning a palace." Charles reached forward. "May I?" She nodded, unsure. He carefully unfolded the page. It was drawn in crayon, the lines rough and joyful. A stick-figure woman held a mop under a ceiling filled with stars. The words above it read, "My mum, Supermum, she cleans a castle." Charles stared at it for a long moment, the innocence of it melting. Something hardened inside him. In the eyes of her child, Maria wasn't invisible. She wasn't just a cleaner. She was a hero, and in that moment, he saw her the same way. "I owe you an apology," he said at last, his voice lower, almost reverent. "I jumped to conclusions. I didn't see you. Not really." Maria's lips parted slightly in surprise. Her eyes shimmered, but she held them steady. "Thank you," she whispered. "Most people don't." Charles set the drawing gently on his desk like it was worth more than gold. And maybe, in that moment, it was because it had done what no board meeting, no quarterly loss, no investor ever could. It reminded him of the humanity he'd been overlooking every day. In a world of glass towers and cold numbers, he had just caught a glimpse of something real, and it changed everything. It was a crisp Saturday morning, and the local park buzzed with quiet energy. Employees from Whitman Industries moved about with gloves, rakes, and shovels, chatting as they picked up trash and prepared garden beds for planting. It was a event, something that had been on the calendar for years, though the CEO himself had never once attended. Until today, a hush fell over a small cluster of workers as a sleek black car pulled up at the curb. Charles Whitman stepped out, dressed not in a suit, but in jeans and a navy windbreaker. He looked almost out of place, powerful yet uncertain as he scanned the park, searching for something, or someone. He spotted her near the edge of the playground, kneeling in the dirt beside a flower bed. Maria wore a wide-brimmed hat, hands already muddy, and next to her was Sophia, wearing oversized gardening gloves and a determined expression as she tried to pat soil over a tiny pink blossom. Sophia was the first to see him. Her eyes lit up with recognition, and without hesitation, she dropped her trowel and ran across the grass toward him. You came, she squealed, flinging her arms around his waist. Charles froze for a second, surprised by the sudden embrace. Then slowly, awkwardly, he rested his hand on her back. I did, he said, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. I wanted to see your castle garden. Sophia pulled back and handed him a folded piece of construction paper. I made you something. He opened it gently. Inside was another crayon drawing, this time of all three of them. Sophia had drawn herself, Maria, and Charles planting flowers under a banner that read, "Thank you for seeing us." His throat tightened. Maria approached quietly, brushing dirt from her knees, clearly unsure how to react to his presence. She opened her mouth to speak, but he spoke first. May I join you? She nodded, blinking in surprise. And just like that, Charles Whitman, billionaire CEO, dropped to his knees in the dirt. He took off his leather gloves, grabbed a small spade, and began to dig beside them. The three of them worked silently, at first planting marigolds and petunias under the morning sun. The air felt different here, softer, more honest. At one point, Sophia giggled and smeared a smudge of dirt across Charles's cheek. He didn't even flinch, he laughed. A few feet away, a company photographer snapped a candid shot, the once untouchable CEO smiling with dirt on his face, kneeling beside a cleaner and her daughter, his hands in the soil, his heart somewhere between remorse and renewal. It wasn't a PR stunt. It wasn't about redemption points. It was simply a man finding something he hadn't known he'd lost. Human connection that morning in the park. With flowers blooming and a child's laughter in the air, Charles Whitman planted more than flowers. He planted the beginning of change. The company auditorium buzzed with anticipation. For once, the stage wasn't reserved for board members or product launches. Today, the spotlight belonged to someone far from the top floor, someone who usually entered the building through the back door, mop in hand. Maria stood backstage, nervously smoothing the hem of her simple dress. Beside her, Sophia clutched her hand tightly, eyes wide with wonder as she took in the glowing lights and rows of smiling faces. The crowd hushed as Charles Whitman stepped up to the podium. Gone was the cold, stoic figure of power they once feared. He looked different, lighter, more human. He adjusted the mic and glanced toward Maria before speaking. Some lessons, he began, don't come from business schools or boardrooms. Sometimes the smallest voice teaches the biggest lesson. A soft murmur rippled through the audience. He continued, a few weeks ago, I made a decision without thought. I almost cost someone their livelihood. But then, a little girl reminded me gently and bravely that behind every uniform is a story, a family, a reason to hope. Maria's eyes filled with tears as she listened, and Sophia beamed up at her. Today, Charles said, his voice growing stronger, we're launching a new initiative, a commitment to the people who keep this company running, often unseen, but never unimportant. Starting this year, we're offering full scholarships to the children of all our janitorial and support staff, and the very first scholarship goes to Sophia. Gasps, then applause. Thunderous, heartfelt applause. Maria covered her mouth, overwhelmed, as Sophia looked up at her with shining eyes. Charles gestured toward them, and the spotlight found the pair. Maria stepped forward hesitantly, led by her daughter, who walked proudly like she belonged there. As they reached the stage, Charles extended his hand, but Maria pulled him into a hug instead. The crowd stood in ovation, clapping not just for a policy change, but for a moment of real transformation. Amid the cheers, Sophia leaned up and whispered into her mother's ear. "See, I told you kindness makes magic." Maria smiled through tears and nodded, holding her daughter close. And in that auditorium where once only numbers mattered, kindness finally took the stage.